Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video I'll be discussing my thoughts on a question posed to me by a friend and follower that is potentially one of the greatest anime mashups of all time. A versus match with two very iconic characters and two of my personal all-time favorite characters, Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop versus Revy Two Hands from Black Lagoon. I love both of these characters. Revy is, the character you see in the banner on my YouTube channel where it says I am the Blues Man, wielding basically like a grenade launcher or shotgun, something along those lines. And, while she is not my absolute favorite all-time female anime character, she is up there probably second to Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. And Spike is definitely my #1 favorite male all-time anime character. And both of them, I mean, this was a real sort of brain teaser, the idea of them going up against each other, butting heads, going head-to-head, because there are so many aspects of their characters, of their skills, that are arguably evenly matched, whether it's the gunplay, martial arts, and fighting capabilities, and that kind of stuff that they have gone through, opponents and adversaries they have had to contend with, and there have been some creative enemies that both of these characters have had to go up against. And basically, we're not going to get into the analytical sort of story explorative aspects of how could Revy, ever even meet Spike? Was she cryogenically frozen for so many decades as Faye Valentine was in the Bebop series and, woke up one day and started sort of conforming to her criminalistic avenues and pursuits and, got so many Wulong bounty on her head or something along those lines. I mean, any which way you want to configure it, one way or the other, both of these characters are existing in the same universe. There is probably a bounty on her head. That would be, the motivation for Spike to want to go after her. And how is this going to play out? And I really thought, again, talking about it in a video, discussing it and exploring it would be all kinds of fun. Perhaps open the door for future sort of speculative mashups of other characters, at least characters that I would be familiar with, in future videos. And I really wanted to get you guys involved. If you're familiar with Spike, if you're familiar with Bebop, if you're familiar with Revy and Black Lagoon, I would love to know, which side you would be on, which side you would be rooting for, who you think the clear-cut winner would be, if you didn't think it would come to an all-out stalemate and draw, because, again, these characters have so many skills that are probably, arguably evenly matched. It's just a brain teaser of the highest renown. And I have to admit, when I first read the question saying that, neither one of them gets the drop on each other, they just sort of end up at the same place at the same time. Spike makes eye contact, realizes there's a bounty to be had, and the chase ensues. My initial sort of reaction was to say, well, Spike is the clear-cut winner here. Before actually thinking it out a little more and coming to that realization that, no, this could really end up in a stalemate, probably, because of their evenly matched skills with the gun wielding and with the fighting capabilities. I mean, it's one of those things where the reason I sort of erred on the side of Spike is because I feel like more often than not, through the course of Cowboy Bebop, have we seen his improvisational skills on the spot. When things are going awry, I mean, there's definitely a lot of chasing around, hiding, ducking under cover and having bullets fired at you and everything like that. The sort of closest we might see to like a battle where Spike is evenly matched is, of course, Vicious. And there are times where Vicious hands Spike his ass. It's very much about the evolution of his character, which really doesn't involve that much. There's not much in the way of change except accepting the loss that, he suffers losing Julia and all that kind of stuff. And Vicious wants to just take him out. Those old bygone an eye for an eye sort of days, are coming to rear its ugly head by the end of Bebop the series. But with all of these sort of bounty heads that Spike has been after as a cowboy, as a bounty hunter, more often than not, he has been in a sort of precarious situation where he's had to think on his feet, and he's been very improvisational. Whereas with Revy, through the course of Black Lagoon, seasons 1 and 2, which are all I have seen, I know there is, Roberta's Blood Trail or something, which is kind of like a third season, spin-off season, but you still see Rock and Revy involved in that one, but I have yet to actually see it. A lot of the time there are similar sort of frameworks to the battles that ensue with Revy, but more often than not, she's just sort of brass tacks. It's all about what weapons do I have on hand, exhausting them to their limits, and then if necessary, resorting to like fisticuffs, and in the case of, a matchup between her and Roberta, respectively. So I feel like, my initial reaction was, well, Spike is the clear-cut choice here because he's improvisational. If he goes up against Revy and she draws her guns, of course there's going to be some firefighting, there's going to be a chase that ensues, and how epic and grandiose in scale might this be? Might it become a thing where he runs to the swordfish, she runs to, the Black Lagoon boat, and she takes off on the water, and he's, right hot on her heels, flying overhead, firing down on her while she's, got Rock or something firing back up at him? Or are we going to just strictly make it between these two characters singularly, not bring in any of the other cast of either of the series? And even if you did, quite frankly, bring in the other characters, Jet, Faye, and that kind of thing, I still think, if they're going up against Revy and the Black Lagoon crew, you still have a kind of even matchup. There are so many different similarities in what their capabilities are. And, you have, of course, Radical Edward, the hacker. You have the guy with the Black Lagoon crew, whose name escapes me off the top of my head, but he is a computer expert and everything like that. So, all bases are covered. That's why these two series, I've always described them as being sort of similar, in what they do, what the characters have to contend with. Both of these characters, the chase would ensue, and whether it's a foot chase, exhausting their bullets, vehicle chase, whatever it happens to be, I really feel like the format of this would be Spike would be standing by the swordfish. He'd happen to look over at a gas station or convenience store where Revy's buying a pack of cigarettes or something. He sees her guns. He, IDs the tattoo on her right arm and shoulder and realizes, oh crap, here is a bounty head. I can make some money. And she, makes eye contact with him, and the chase ensues because she knows something's up, the way he's eagle-eyeing her and everything like that. It begins as a foot chase, maybe around the block, maybe through a building, maybe across rooftops, that leads her back to the sort of backside of the buildings where the docks are, where her ship is, where her boat is, or a boat that she could make off with. And Spike doubles back to the swordfish, and the vehicle chase ensues. After a sort of foot chase where there is some shooting going on and such like that. And, at some point, because the swordfish is the more superior vehicle, you have it shooting down at this boat. It, destroys the boat. She crash lands it, and the foot chase resumes, and, there's still gunplay and everything like that. And it goes on and on until basically they're out of bullets and there are no other weapons to be had. And so you are going to effectively resort to fisticuffs, resort to Spike's martial arts training and his very zen sort of approach to all of that stuff. Whereas Revy's much more about the brutal aspect of just pounding the hell out of somebody. And, like I say, we're going to see them basically, Spike is going to be kicking her around and she's going to be landing blows to him. And I really feel like both of these characters are going to just run out of steam, run out of energy, because they are going to be exhausted to the limits of fighting each other. And they're so evenly matched, where I would almost suggest Revy doesn't want to kill Spike right off the bat. She gets a perception on him, and vice versa, arguably. But the way I see the match sort of playing out is she just barely manages to knock him out long enough to get away. And there's this brief, moment where she considers killing him, and she's looking at him and realizing there's something more to this guy. Whatever it is, whether she's reminded of Rock because of the shirt and tie, whether, it's one of those things where she can perceive that he's one of the good guys. He's not actually a bad guy, a villain, a gangland guy or something along those lines. there's a kinship in their being so evenly matched that they impress each other. And so she might be looking down at him and just think, okay, you lucked out today. I'm sparing you. She makes off, and soon thereafter, Spike comes to, disappointed, radioing into Jet. She just barely got away, or you know, Jet probably wouldn't even know. It would be one of those things where, like, Spike would be on the radio and just be like, oh, wait till I tell you the day I had, or, you know, something along those lines. Jet would be complaining about Ed and Faye, and Spike would just be like, yeah, well, you think you got it bad, you know. And I really feel like, because of how evenly matched these characters are, it would be a stalemate. It would be one of those things where neither one would actually win. And I feel like it would be better that way in a sense, because you're going to have fans of, you know, either of the characters that might be a bigger fan of one or the other, one over the other, and would be disappointed if I said, you know, out and out, Spike beats, you know, Revy and takes her in, or something along those lines. I really feel like Spike would not let go of the fight, and it would have to take his being just barely knocked out and Revy making off for this to all sort of play out the way it might if they actually did meet in an animated anime format, you know, that kind of scenario. And so yeah, I mean, this was a mad fun thing to imagine and speculate about. And you know, I mean, my words don't do justice to what I see in my head. I see very much a sequence, an action sequence that is very much akin to a mashup between both Cowboy Bebop and Black Lagoon's animation styles, and the character traits of both of these characters coming to the fore. And I just love them both. While Revy will always be sort of secondary to my all-time favorite female anime character, Motoko Kusanagi, she is still up there. She's still a badass to be contended with. And Spike is very much the same as far as a male anime counterpart. He's my all-time favorite male anime character. One that I would, you know, there are certain aspects of his nature I would aspire toward. You know, very much his sort of, you know, just go with the flow attitude, not really concerning himself with anything that doesn't directly impact him or conflict with his outlook and his very zen-like nature, that kind of thing. I mean, you have that one episode where he's teaching the young guy who ends up unfortunately being killed because he's trying to get this, you know, plant that will allow for his sister, who is blind, to be healed. And he gets in with the wrong crowd to steal this plant because it's a very priceless, very rare item and everything like that on Mars. When Spike is teaching him sort of how to be fluidic in motion with his martial arts, he just has a really sort of zen, almost, you know, sort of the dude from the Big Lebowski way of carrying himself. He doesn't really concern himself with anything that doesn't immediately conflict with his disposition. And I love that about Spike. And then at the same time, when it comes to his, you know, he's very much on his tippy toes. He's very much into the action, and his skills come to the fore, and he has fun with it whenever he has to go up against somebody, whenever he's chasing down a bounty head. And with Revy, she has an intriguing past that is questionable and you know, speculatively dark and that kind of stuff. And you don't get too much into the psychological aspects of her character. They're just sort of cursorily explored in her interactions and reactions to other characters in Black Lagoon and things along those lines. But I mean, you know, we see that she is skilled. We see that she can be brutal. She can, she has a very sort of, I guess you could say, you know, salacious reaction to getting into the nitty-gritty, to exposing blood and everything like that. And so, I mean, she has a brutal quality that would definitely make her tough as nails in going up against Spike. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Frankly, you know, I mean, that's enough of my rambling, exploring and speculating about this. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you think of this particular matchup, who you think would win. Do you think there would be a clear victor, or do you think, as I have erred in the, you know, the sort of speculative format of this video, that it would all sort of play out to a draw because of the equal matchup of these two characters and their skills and that sort of stuff? And for those of you who are unfamiliar with these characters, if you watch the video, can you pose any other anime characters, if you, especially you're familiar with the series I've covered, any characters from the series I've covered that you think would be an interesting matchup to consider in the future. I'm definitely open to suggestions, and it will all, sort of revolve around whether or not I'm familiar with the characters or not. But I thought this was a fun exercise, a mental exercise to really consider how familiar I am with the characters and their skills and their capabilities, and just sort of give an outline of how I think it would all go down. And so, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and who you thought, the winner would be, if you thought there would even be one, all that kind of good stuff. And so, yeah, otherwise, it'll be pretty much it for me on this, and I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.